and today I'm reviewing the Transformers Combiner Wars Legends class Groove. Yeah, I'm really behind on this, but I really want to go ahead and get this Combiner Wars stuff out of the way. So here's Groove. He's a tiny little modernized version of his motorcycle mode. And this version of Groove, of course, is the Legends version, which means he is in scale vehicle-wise, but means he can no longer form a limb. As you can see, he's standing next to Defensor. Yeah, there's definitely no way that could become a limb. Maybe if you plug something into the wheel, but yeah, not a good limb. So he is a very tiny little guy. They, of course, also now released his Lux version of Groove that was originally Japanese exclusive to Unite Warriors Defensor, but now you can get just that figure by itself now. But I went ahead and bought this version before because I didn't know they were going to come out with the Deluxe version over here. So the motorcycle mode is okay. I mean, I'll be honest, there are better motorcycle modes out there, like Transformers Prime RC, both the Deluxe and the First Edition. But this one's okay for Legends class. I mean, right here on the side, you can kind of see that there's all this stuff that's clearly meant to turn to robot stuff, because you can see the ball joint slots. Plus, it doesn't help they painted his arms in like a gunmetal silver, and it sticks out from the rest of the gray. And it is a bit wide and chunky, but it's an okay motorcycle mode. They do have the paint here, gold paint for the windshield. You can actually see little dials in there as details to show like, the speed and such for the motorcycle, which is nice. You can see the seat is molded in the middle there, although it always has a split. I can never quite get the... Yeah, that's as best it's going to get. Although, then again, also if somebody was sitting on the seat, I guess these would be where you put your feet then? These little tabs? These are tabs meant for when you combine with Defensor, but I guess somebody would just sit here and lean really far back. I'm not sure. It looks a little weird. And then, of course, he has thrusters on the end of at the back of his vehicle. And he does have both wheels, and they both spin. Anyway, he has two wheels like a proper motorcycle, which is nice. He also has this little star, black star with an Autobot symbol in the middle. Pretty interesting, it's unique to say the least. And he's got some red paint here. So, it's okay. Not the best motorcycle mode, but not bad for Legends. And there you have Groove in his robot mode. And for size, once again, there's Defensor. He's really tiny. Also very scrawny and very odd looking in proportions. I mean, if you actually pop his leg off, and then let's get him laying down, you can actually see literally 2/3 of his height is his leg. Quite literally 2/3 of his height is his leg. Also, he had really loose ball joints out of the box. I had to put some nail polish remover on his ball joints there and on his elbows. So now he stands okay now, but before he would really loose ball joints. He still has loose hinges up here. These little parts come out really easily. But I do think he looks alright. I do like the head sculpt. The head sculpt looks cool. I like his visor, I like the gold paint. The gold paint does kind of make his mouth disappear. But I do like the details. You get a little crest, got silver visor, got his little nose. And it's all painted decently. The hands do look a little odd because it almost looks like he doesn't have a back to his hand, as it just kind of disappears. I know technically this is the back of his hand, but it makes it look like he doesn't have a hand, he just has fingers sticking off a piece of metal. And it also makes it look really skinny. It looks like it's also going to break easily, probably. I do like how they handled the wheels, though, having it split in half and just kind of on his legs. That looks alright. I wish the seats folded down or something. I don't know, they don't really look like shin guards considering they're not front of the shins. It feels like they should have slid over or something. I feel like it could just have used a little bit more. That's this whole figure, is that he could have used just a little bit more. I do like how they handle the chest piece, though, with these little bits kind of forming a chest plate with the windshield. And you do get a small Autobot symbol in the chest. Articulation-wise, his head does rotate, but it's so tight. Mine is extremely tight. I would need a pair of tweezers to move it. That's how I moved it before. You do get a ball joint at the shoulder, which is nice. Although the arm does look a little broken considering this part's higher, this part's lower. Do get a ball joint at the elbow. Nothing at the waist, but you do get ball jointed legs, swivel, hinged knees. And you do got some articulation with the feet due to transformation. Ooh, nail polish is falling off. So you can get some okay poses going for him. Just wish his head joint wasn't so tight. So the biggest problem with him is just the aesthetic thing. Like I said, like I mentioned, his hands look weird. He has odd proportions. He also has this weird arm thing going on where, like I said, one part's higher than the other, so it looks like he has a broken arm. Like I said, it's all aesthetics. Another big problem for me with this figure is the paint. Now, there is a lot of paint. You can see this is... But it also seems really dumbly used paint. Like, the head is completely white, as you can see chipping under it. Why? There's no part of his head that's white. So why paint it black, gold, and silver? Why not just have it black and then you can just use gold and silver? Same with his feet. They are actually white, with black painted over. I have no idea why. Also, this little piece right here, this little thruster does pop off very easily. I've had plenty of times where I was transforming him, and it stayed on this foot. So you end up, originally I thought that's how he was supposed to be, because that's how it came off originally. So, yeah. Pieces are even glued together right, and it's painted underneath, too. So, I don't even know what's going on there. And the thing is, this paint, whatever paint they use, chips very easily. Very similar to the head of Cosmos from the early 30s set. You can see right there on both sides of his head, he's got a major one right here. He's got a smaller one right there where the black paint's chipping off. On the back of both his legs, you don't see this in robot mode, but in vehicle mode where it's like this, you can see on both of them where the paint's chipping off from transformation. And this one's because of the tweezers I have to use to turn his head. And it's all really weird because why use that paint? Like, the silver on the arms looks okay, at least, even if it breaks up in robot mode, or in vehicle mode. But I'm not sure why the paint's on the feet and the head. I don't know, he's a really weird figure. So, let's get to his third mode. And there you have Groove in his chest plate mode for Defensor. It doesn't look bad. I will admit, I don't usually do this because it's not really G1-esque. Because I'm used to seeing Defensor with his big black chest plate, black and silver. But this doesn't look bad. It does actually at least look like a chest plate. It does look like this could actually do some defense for Defensor. No pun intended. And there are little adjustments you can do with it too, since the feet still aren't locked in or anything. You could put the feet up, or at an angle. I prefer to leave them like so, but you could also flip around like the stock photos, but I don't think it's bad. This is probably, ironically, Groove's best mode, because he is rather solid in this mode. He does look like a decent chest plate. Not great, mind you, but decent. If I wasn't really a fan of the Defensor's G1 design, I would probably actually use this more. And I do sometimes still display him like this. So overall, do I recommend Groove? Not particularly. Unless you're really into vehicle scale, he's not really a good figure, even among his fellow Protectobots. If you do want Groove, I would recommend getting the Deluxe over this guy. I don't have him myself, but he looks a lot better. Just between the robot mode not really looking good aesthetically, the paint chipping, the only okay motorcycle mode, the rather boring transformation in most cases. It's really simple, really plain transformations. Like I said, his best mode is honestly his chest plate mode right now, and it's not enough for me to recommend him. If he turned into a gun or something and was a really cool gun, might be able to recommend him, but chest plate, nah, Defensor's good. Today I'm reviewing the Transformers Combined Wars Deluxe Class Streetwise, the Protectobots who formed Defensor, if you didn't know. Which, if you're watching this video, you probably do know that. So, the Streetwise here is actually a heavy remold of the Dead-End mold from Minosaur. And there is quite a few differences. Unfortunately, I don't have one of them with me to compare it to, but I do know off the bat the hood is, on the original, the hood was a lot more smooth, didn't have this venting in it. The windshield went out a bit farther and was a bit wider, I believe. And there was a lot of other remolds, but there were so many it's really hard to kind of go over. But this is like a lot more angular, this is a lot more like, got sharp angles and sharp little details, and there's a lot of different stuff here. But yeah, there is a huge difference. Also, the original mold didn't have this on top, and it also had kind of smooth going back instead of this kind of ridges and vents coming up. So it is very nice. They did a lot of remolding, even though it's technically the same mold. And this mold, of course, got its own remold as Prowl here, who is exactly the same as in car mode, basically, just different paint and different head in robot mode. But you can see the overall details are pretty much the same here, except just where the paint goes. But it's nice that they changed it up enough with like where paint apps land to really differentiate between these two. And for another comparison, here he is next to Groove. So these are typical deluxe class size. He does have some accessories. he has this, I guess, a 3-barreled shotgun with a scope. I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe. Really odd little weapon, but you can peg it onto the side, which is a little low. Let's say you'd be scraping the ground. You can also peg it to the top of the vehicle, which makes a bit more sense. Still looks a little odd though. You can also peg it to the back if you wish, which I guess could be storage. Typically I tend to store it just by pegging on the side and having it pointed backwards. Maybe it could be extra exhaust, I don't know. I tend not to use this weapon. The car molds in particular seem to have a lot of trouble storing their weapons just because there's not a lot of places to put them and they look a little awkward. Then he also has this weapon, which I'm not sure what this is. I mean, it's clearly got little shooting things at the end there. And it does have details on the inside, so I'm not sure exactly what you would call this weapon. It kind of looks like some kind of laser weapon to me. But you can also peg that to the top. Although it does not hang... Oh, yeah, it does not hang on well. Like, when you move it around, it's fine, but then when you try to pick up, it just doesn't even try. You can peg onto the back, but then it's also kind of doing that thing. Yeah, car's gonna be off its back wheels, basically. So the only place you could possibly peg this is to the top. Which, again, I guess you could use for extra exhaust pipes, but I think it looks a little ridiculous, so I don't bother pegging the weapons onto its vehicle mode. But I do like all the details. The paint is nice blue here with police kind of inscribed in there, or not inscribed, I guess, since that's actually the plastic. You might have also noticed Streetwise here is a little bit of an off beige white, because Prowl here is like a bright, pure white. Well, Streetwise, it's kind of hard to tell on camera, but it's a lot easier to see in person. He has a slight yellow to him, so he's a slightly white beige. He's white with a slight hint of beige to it. It's really weird. But I guess it also kind of helps differentiate him from Prowl. He does have the siren on top and it is painted nicely, except that from the sides you can see little bits missing from where the pieces don't quite fit together as they should. You do get the blue up here with the police inscribed in again. You do get silver headlights. The grills down here are not painted, but the front bumper part with the lights is painted in gunmetal gray, which is pretty nice. You even do get the back window painted in black, which is pretty neat. You can also even see a detail for a gas cap there, which is nice. I like those little details. I wish the wheels were painted, but nope. Ever since Combiner Wars, we've basically just been getting these black wheels. Actually, it might have been since Dueling 30, it's hard to say. And then the rear, nothing on the rear, no paint here, but there is a lot of nice details for the rear lights and bumper, and you can also see where the transformation doesn't quite fit together because there's little bits in there we can see it there. Usual stuff with Combiner Wars, just little stuff that skips through. There's also a line going through the P on police. So then it's foot mode, which, it's okay. It's a foot, it's pretty wide, it's pretty solid looking. It's a nice foot mode. It's what you kind of expect from a foot mode from a car. And there you have Prowl in his arm mode, which is a good arm mode. It's pretty solid looking. I will admit I do find it a little strange that the forearm's wider than the shoulder. Especially if you kind of flip this up, you get a really skinny shoulder compared to a really thick forearm. You can also flip this up to form like a shoulder blade. But other than that, I don't like aesthetic look. It's perfectly fine. It works well as an arm. You get 2 elbows on it. So I think he's one of the better arm modes, or at least acceptable arm mode. And then finally we have Streetwise in his robot mode. Let's go get comparisons out of the way. Here he is next to his teammate Groove, who's a legend, so he's much shorter. See about half the size of Streetwise there. And here's Prowl, who I think with the different color patterns does differentiate these two quite a bit. And granted, you can take one look at them and know they're the same mold, but there's a lot of different paint apps. The paints that are the same or in different areas. It helps a lot to make these two look different, especially since the different whites they used. Which is weird. He's also the only one. Streetwise here is the only one of the Protectobots that uses kind of beige white. The other are kind of the bright white like Prowl here. So I'm not sure what was with that. But let's get these two out of the way since they're not the figure being reviewed here. So here's Streetwise, and he has a pretty awesome head sculpt, I would say. He's got these shades going down, he's got a nice silver mouth, you can actually make out the mouth in there. It kind of looks like the Power Rangers mouth from the original Season 1. He's got these little antennae that are actually done up in red, he's got the crest coming down done up in red. So it's all very nicely painted. The overall figure, it does have a decent amount of paint. You do get some red on the forearms. You get some black on the arm, on the end of the legs here, and the chest plate's done up in black. Let me make sure that, yep. Chest plate's actually white, so it's actually done up in black. with an Autobot decal put on there. Very nice. Oh, it looks like mine's slightly off center. That's gonna bug me now that I noticed it. My decal's like slightly off center. I do wish there was a bit more paint, maybe some on the legs or on the shins, maybe some on the codpiece there, I'm not sure. Maybe even some along the sides here, kind of like what they did with the helicopter molds. But it's enough that it does break up everything. There's no color that's really overpowering per se. Maybe there's a little too much white here, especially with that kind of meh beige white. I wouldn't mind it quite as much if it was a brighter white, but it looks okay. One weird issue is that his arms, if you have them straight, they look really, really short. Like, really short. Like, here's Prowl, who has his arm actually bent, and it actually goes down further than the arm straight because of how this arm's put together. It's also because how high up the arms are on the with the shoulders. It's the where the shoulder starts actually above, slightly above where the chest is. Like, if you actually lower down the arms. It's not that his arms are really short, it's more just how high up they are, because if you actually put his arms where you would expect the arms to start, like lined up with the chest, it's kind of hard to do. It does limit the articulation, but it does have a bit better of a aesthetic look to it. As you can see, it's a bit closer to where you expect his arms to be instead of up here. And like I said, because of this, how his elbows put together, his arms are actually a little bit longer if you actually bend the elbow. It's a little weird. Not quite sure what they were thinking with that. It's not a deal breaker per se, it's just an odd thing about this mold. He does have his weapons, which are this thing that I'm still not quite sure what it is, but it is a mighty looking blaster. I'm going to call it his taser. And he does have his triple barreled shotgun with a scope. I'm still not sure why you would want a scope on a triple barreled shotgun, because I'm pretty sure those are usually pretty close range, but he does have it. And maybe it's not a shotgun, but it looks like one to me. Even has a little pump down here, so yeah, I'm going to call it a shotgun. Triple barreled still pretty scary though. Very scary. And I do like it's done up a nice metallic gray, the gunmetal gray, to kind of give that realistic look almost. That's the other thing, it doesn't have any gunmetal gray in this mode. I mean, granted, it was only on the bumper in the car mode, but it was since it was on the bumper, it was pretty easy to see. In this mode, he's just white, red, and black with a tiny bit of silver and blue on his face, which I wouldn't even count as colors for him, considering it's just on his face. So it's kind of weird. He doesn't have really any color mixing at all. It's all just like a white body with a little bit of red and then a little bit of black mixed in. He really could have used more color. He could have used some of that blue he had. Some of that blue or some of that gunmetal gray, some silver, something, just something to help break this up. Maybe a little bit of blue on the chest, maybe a little bit on the legs. Just maybe blue on his toes. There we go. That would have helped break that up a little bit. Or on the shoulders. None of these guys actually have paints on the shoulders either. All these guys are just like, all these different car modes, their shoulders are just left as is. Oh, there is still even detail here. Even the peg hole that's sticking out has like a detail, almost like a dial or a gear, which is pretty nice. And he does have like little pistons in his arms and such. So it is nice detailing. He also has no feet. I mean, he has a foot molded on there, but he doesn't have a foot sticking out. But he has such nice blocky legs, he doesn't really need feet or heels since they're just kind of two big blocks he's standing on. So at least they used the kibble kind of correctly to kind of form actual legs that he can stand with. It's just kind of weird aesthetically because it means his foot actually goes past his leg here, since that wheel is actually here. It looks a little weird. He has some weird aesthetics, but I like him still. So his articulation is good. Let's get his weapons off him. Yeah, come here, give me a shotgun. I know you like it, but I need it. So he does have a ball joint. I think he technically has a ball joint, but you can't really move it up and down much. You can move it up slightly up and slightly down. But mainly what you can do with is swivel, and it does swivel pretty well. Do get ball joints at the shoulder, and you do have that hinge if you still wish to use it. But the ball joint can't go out, so they did cut it right. You do get a swivel, although it does look a little weird using it because then you have this junk kind of sticking out, and you have nearly invisible elbows. Yeah, I'm going to call that the invisible elbow because it does have a thing to kind of still try to link it, but it still looks like the arm's just kind of hanging in the air because of how wide it is. But you do have that, and you do technically have a hinge at the hand if you find a use for that. You do get a waist swivel, and it does go all the way around to mushroom peg, so works pretty well. Ball jointed hips that go, can't go quite the full 90 degrees, but you can do most of a split. outward, and forward they have no issues at all. And there's no kibble getting in the way of them, so that's pretty nice. Do get swivels right below those ball joints, as well as hinges for the ankles. So you can get him into some poses, and with his nice wide feet, he can do quite a bit. Because even when he's standing on just the edge of his feet, because of how wide they are, they do give him quite a bit of balance. So for as weird as some of his aesthetics are, he does make for a pretty good action figure. Let's give him a shotgun again, because he looks like he's about to use it. Give him a weird kind of... Can't tell if he's doing a dance, or if he's just kind of waving a shotgun around. Or maybe he's getting ready for a jump attack, who knows. But yeah, that's streetwise. Overall, he's a pretty decent figure. He could use some more paint, and like I mentioned, some of his aesthetics are a little bit weird, and you probably already have this mold array between all the different ones they have. But he is one of the members of the Protectobots. It's kind of hard not to have one of the members. And he does look good enough that I think he'll look fine with all the rest. My only biggest complaint, honestly, is that beige white. The beige white is really what bugs me. But if you get past that and the missing paint, then I think you're going to have a good time with this figure. He's a pretty nice figure, and I think anybody could enjoy him, collectors or collectors or kids. Protectobot, Blades. You can see Blades is a rescue helicopter. I'm not sure what kind of rescue helicopters needs, 6 missiles? But it's a rescue helicopter. Even says so right there, on both sides. And he is painted pretty nice. He is a very nice looking helicopter for the most part. As mentioned, I'm not sure why he has so many missiles. This is, of course, a leftover from when he was Alpha Bravo, and as well as for his repaint into Vortex. Which it works on those two. Here it's a little odd considering he's supposed to be rescued, but I guess you could argue they're like water missiles or ice missiles for putting out fire. Maybe they could be extinguisher missiles. Could be a lot of things. He also has a nice, interesting Autobot symbol here, which is the Coastal Guard, or let's see, Autobot Coastal Rescue Autobot symbol, which was also used on his the Universe Voyager class blades. So that's kind of interesting they reused that tempo. And it's pretty nice, it fits the character pretty well. I do have a couple of issues with this mold. For one thing, the arms are just kind of right there. They're the missile launchers, but yeah, they're just arms attached to the side of the helicopter. I guess you could technically say it gives it movement with the missiles, but it's just the arms. It would actually work a little bit better if they somehow attached them up here at least, or maybe somehow had them fold up down here. And speaking of down there, there's a whole half of a robot just sitting right there. I know a lot of Transformers do this. Maybe it's only bugging me because it's a helicopter. I mean, Groove doesn't exactly hide his parts either. I don't think any Transformer really does hide underneath. Maybe it's because it's a helicopter that's underneath really bugs me, but it's just like... I think it's mainly because it's all sculpted in. Like, it lays like a helicopter, but then it's just a robot's chest sculpted into the bottom of the helicopter. I don't know, something about that bugs me. Maybe it's just me, but... I don't know. Something about it just bugs me. It's just like half helicopter, half robot. But these Combined Wars have to fit in the 4 modes together, and it's not bad. It's just a personal thing that bugs me there. The propeller does, not the propeller, whatever we call this thing, it does spin. And if you do have it landed, you could fold them up like this, if you so wish. The back rotor does not spin, rotor, that's what it's called. The back rotor does not spin at all, but it is painted silver. And he is not in his G1 colors, as it's only the front, as it is, there's a lot more red here than there is in the G1, but I think it looks fine, honestly. And it does remind me a lot of, for some reason it reminds me of Classic's Astro Train, maybe just because of how he transforms, which we'll see in a little bit. He does have some weaponry. There are 2 peg holes up here that actually have a little bit of venting detail on the inside, which is neat. Where you could peg in his gun, so you could have it mounted like so, and it doesn't interfere with a propeller, rotor, whatever you call it. There's also a peg on the bottom you can mount it from, which doesn't look bad. You can also peg into it, since the missiles are the hands, you can peg into there as well. Personally, I prefer leaving it pegged up here. And then you can take his combiner foot hand, and you can actually see it has 2 miniguns, which again, were really weaponized for a rescue helicopter. You can actually peg it to the bottom, and then you can actually use it in battle. You know, you can actually aim it down and shoot at Decepticons. Heavily, like I said, very heavily armed for a rescue helicopter. And also due to this, he does have a unique thing where him and Rook can actually combine, because Rook has a big peg on the top of him. So you can actually have him like lay on top of Rook. I'll show that when I get to Rook's review. But yeah, that's an interesting little thing that those two can do in particular. So no real gimmicks, just, you know, of course, the helicopter. For comparison, here he is with his repaint Vortex, who you see pretty much the exact same, just different colors. At least in helicopter mode, it's just the exact same. And here you have him with little tiny Legends class Groove. And then you have his foot mode, and it's not bad. I do like the arms kind of help bulk him out a little bit here, this mode. But yeah, it's a decent foot mode. It doesn't look bad. And there you have blades in arm mode. You can also bring these back down, flip them back up into here. And it's a pretty nice little arm mode. I mean, you get all the articulation you need, double elbow, swivel, hand swivel, all that. Go into that more when I get to Defensor. But yeah, he's a decent arm mode. He does make a very solid forearm. I don't really like how all this looks. So I usually, like I mentioned, just leave this folded up, and if you do that, I think he looks fine. To go ahead and get comparisons out of the way, here he is next to Vortex, and you can see the drastic difference in color schemes, as well as the different head sculpts, as I believe Vortex actually has the original Alpha Bravo head sculpt. And here he is next to Groove, show his size. So yeah, he's pretty nice looking, and they do have a bit of different color, like how Blades has his hands painted, but does not have the middle of his chest painted like Vortex. Or just the different ways the colors are done, like Vortex has his purple going all the way up, while he just has stripes of silver. So let's get them out of the way. Also, Vortex doesn't, or Blades doesn't really have the kind of stickered Abba, it just kind of has a template on the silver there. But yeah, this is him in his robot mode, and he looks pretty nice. I do like the chest detailing, but the only problem is once again, it's kind of like it's just sculpted into the bottom of a helicopter. As you look at it from a distance, it's still just kind of a flat robot going all the way down with weird pegs sticking out. And it's implied that yes, this is his actual chest here. But I mean, it's basically just a block with a robot carved into it. It's a really weird aesthetic thing for me. Not everybody's going to have a problem with it, it's just going to bug me. Also, if as much as like how Combiner Wars goes into huge remolds, like how we go from off-road to First Aid, or from Rook to Hound, with such drastic remolds, I dislike how little they did with Blades. Especially with him being a rescue helicopter, the missiles still really bug me. I feel like they could have turned those into like the water bios or something else that was not missiles. Just something to differentiate him a bit more, because the only thing that separates him from Alpha Bravo and Vortex is his head in the paint scheme. Even his weapons are exactly the same. Forgot to transform that back. But looking at the details he does have, his head sculpt is pretty nice and it is unique. Very nice looking. I like the nice crystal blue and then the dark blue eyes he has. Very much enjoy that. Big fan of the blue. I do like the silver on the chest. I do think he could use a little bit more, maybe some on the connector piece. I wish they would paint these connector pieces. I don't know why they ignored them. I wish the red was painted differently from the red of the figure, because it would help it stand out more. Like with Vortex, as I showed, this works a lot better because he's actually painted a different color from his plastic. Here it kind of just blends in, so it makes him look like he's a guy very wide, he looks fat. He looks fat, to be honest. He looks kind of like how Energon Optimus does, or Energon Hotshot did. Nothing wrong with being fat, but just, it looks odd. But as far as the other details, no details on each side of the feet, actually. Just like, there is kind of, but not much. Most of his details really come from his vehicle mode, except the only new details really revealed are his hands and his chest, and his head, of course. And he does have quite the Kibblelicious backpack here. And you got the entire tail of the helicopter as well as the propeller, which I guess there's not really much they could have done with that, but yeah, it is a bit of a mess. It's not really cohesive, it's all just kind of stuff hanging around. I mean, granted, you can't really see it, it does hide behind him pretty well, it's just, you look at him from the back end, yeah. Lots of kibble. Also a little bit on the feet too, technically. So if that kind of thing bugs you, you were warned. And those feet really do remind me of Classics Astro Train. You got the bottom pieces that fold up to the sides, and you have the top pieces that form little feet. I wish I had Astro Train with me right now to show you that, but he basically has the same feet transformation as him. It's pretty weird. But just something interesting to bring up. As far as articulation, he does have a ball-jointed head, and you could use the connector piece to make him look further down or further up, if you wish. But he does it well enough on his own. Well, I guess you can't really look down, so you could use a connector piece for that, but we'll bump the tail piece back. You do get full shoulder movement with a ball joint, swivel, elbow, which is like a plastic ratchet, and we'll get to that in a second. Do get a waist swivel, but it kind of only clicks in right here. You do get ball joint at the legs, and it does go all the way out. It does go all the way forward. Could go back with the cable out of the way. You do get, oh. Okay, that just happened. I was going to show the leg swivel, but it's so tight that it ended up popping the ball joint off. It's a very tight swivel though, but it does work. You do get on the other side as well. You do get a hinge at the knee, and it works pretty well. And you do technically get feet movement. So you could get them more, you can't really use the feet much, but you could use it a little bit, like right there. Oh. And those plastic ratchets in the elbows worry me, because if you actually look closely, you can actually see the plastic is wearing away. Like, not sure you can see it from the bottom there, but you can see it best from the top there. The plastic is actually wearing away on those ratchets. There we go, I can bend it backwards. It's not good looking, it's nasty looking, and it worries me that eventually his elbows are going to work. I'm not sure why I decided to go with a ratchet, why not just a simple ball joint, but doing this, it basically is going to, it looks like it's slowly going to break, the elbow is slowly going to lose its stiffness because of it. And that's just an unfortunate design choice. I'm not sure why I decided to go with that. And of course, there's the usual hollowing out. Legs are completely hollow, but that's due to transformation, understandable, but you can see the top legs, the arms, the underarms, everything is hollow. Everything is hollow. Oh man, that was a bad joke. He doesn't have much weapon storage either. I mean, you can store the gun using the same pegs in helicopter mode, but his combiner hand foot, there's really not much you can do. Like, you could technically peg it to the back there, but it's going to be pushing his arm forward. It's really going to be blocking that arm. And he technically also has this peg back here he could use if you want to use that, but you can peg it there and get that. I mean, I guess that's really the best way you can handle it, but yeah, there's not much you can do with this thing. So you can just have him hold it and have a double-barreled Gatling gun, which is still kind of ridiculous, but I mean, it is awesome. And give him his other gun. So yeah, that's Protectobot blades. Not the best out of the Protectobots, but not bad either. I do like a lot of the details he has. I do think he's painted well enough. I think there's a lot of odd choices, but a lot of these are more personal things that irk me. Nothing. I think a lot of these things won't bug the majority of people. The only thing that legit worries me are those elbows, because they do look like they've been wearing away. And this is after light play. This is not me tossing them around the room or something. This is just me using them occasionally for posing or for transforming into the Defensor. So yeah, these do worry me quite a bit. I'm worried that eventually the arm's going to wear it completely off, and then I'm going to have an armless blades or something. But in general, he's a decent figure. First aid. Now you can see first aid, of course, is an ambulance, and he's a very nice looking ambulance actually. He's got a very stylized look with the edges going up and the sharp angles, and very interesting look for an ambulance, but it is a very nice looking ambulance. It is a remold of Off-Road, of Combiner Wars Off-Road, who was a truck. And you can see there is a heavy remold back here where they completely filled in the truck part and kind of give it a full back. Because normally the truck would have stopped about here where the arms are, but you see it's actually completely filled in back here, making a nice solid looking ambulance. And it does look pretty good. I have noticed each of the Protectobots do have some kind of tampo on the side. Like there's a SWAT thing for Rook, there's police for Streetwise, and here we have Rescue. And yeah, you see it pretty clearly. He does have a line going through to kind of break up the red. He does have emergency right there. Also has a lot of nice blue paint. So all the windows are actually painted in, except for the back windows, but I'm not sure if those are windows or just doors. But you can see all 8 windows along the sides and front are painted in, which is pretty nice, even putting little separations for the windows right there. So they actually left those parts unpainted to kind of separate out the windows, which is pretty nice. It's very well painted. Especially since all this right here is also paint. Yeah, this is all white plastic, so this is all paint right here. And you can get a little bit of red paint on the top. And some silver for the grill. Honestly, the only thing I would complain about is I wish the headlights were painted. I wish the back here was painted a little bit. But considering how much paint we did get on the truck, on the ambulance here, I'm not really going to be too mad about it. We do get unpainted wheels as well, unfortunately. But like I said, with how much paint we did get, I'm not really too mad. For size comparison, here he is next to Little Groove, and here he is next to Voyager Hotspot. So you can see he is your basic deluxe size. If you line him up with Hotspot, you see just how small he is. So let's get those two out of the way. He does have some accessories. He comes with an axe, which seems appropriate for a medical officer in case he might need to break down a door or something to go save somebody. And you can peg it in here, or even back here, I guess. I mean, you could peg it in there. What I prefer to do is peg on this side, because now the back handle kind of looks like an extra tailpipe. Which is pretty nice. Also, yeah, you can see his feet right there, but besides that, he doesn't really have any robot kibble, except for these back feet just kind of hanging down here. And even then, they don't look like feet, they're just stuff hanging down. But yeah, you don't really see him kibble, unless you look under and then, yeah, whole robot right there. His other accessory is this, which are also some more quadruple tailpipes, which I guess you could also use for a smoke screen, or you could use it for an extinguisher. You know, these weapons are fairly fitting for the character. What's supposed to do, though, is there was supposed to be a tab hole molded in between the middle fingers here. If you watch my off-road review, you can actually see those tab holes on that. And what it's supposed to do is allow it to have like a similar gimmick. With off-road, it was kind of planted here to where it looks like it was part, making the truck entire back look like a giant engine. Here, it was supposed to tab on top to where you could give it the engine and still give it like some kind of weaponry, I guess. But it's missing the tab holes for some reason. I mean, to give you an idea, it would sit like about like this, and then just kind of fold the thumb back, you know, like that. Just to give you a general idea of how it should look, except to be a bit further up here. But the tab hole's just not there, you see. I don't know why mine was not molded. I know there was versions that were molded. This isn't like a all figures thing. This is like half of them got the molding, half of them didn't. I'm not sure why. So what I do instead is fold it up and peg it to the back there, and you can give them the quadruple tailpipe. Yeah, it sticks out like a mile, but it gives you a place to store it without looking weird. Or you could just store it to this side, like so. I personally don't like this look. I don't like having it sticking out like that. If it's going to be sticking out, where it'd be back here, where at least makes more sense. But you do you. Hopefully you got one of the ones that has the tab hole. I'm just unfortunate. And there you have a leg. And I do like this because my main problem with off-road in the truck mold was that he had a weird dent in his leg, because it would stop here, then go here, and then would go down here. Now with this filled in, it actually makes a much more solid looking leg. Sure, you still have this part sticking out, but at least you can say it's just a kneecap. With it like this, I actually prefer this a lot more as a leg. And it looks very nice too. But yeah, it is basically just the ambulance with the connector bit sticking out the top. But it does look a lot better than off-road did. It gives him a very strong looking arm. Like, it almost gives Defensor a muscular arm here, and it does look very nice. Sure, there's slots right in here, but, I mean, like, it looks like it's gonna hurt if you punch somebody with that arm. Or, you know, slammed against them like that. And yeah, my knee joints are a little loose. Personally, I don't like how this looks up here, because it just looks broken up. So what I personally prefer to do is actually take it like that, having it stick like a shoulder blade, and fold up the arm like this, using the normal elbows. It is kind of the same thing, but at least with the rescue kind of going forward like this, it makes it look a little more solid to me. And I like having the shoulder blade kind of thing going on. I mean, it's personal preference, you do you, but... Oh yeah, while we're here, you can go ahead and see there's some detail actually under the arm there, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's the arm mode, and it's a pretty nice little arm mode. But there we have first aid in his awesome little robot mode. To go ahead and get comparisons out of the way, here he is next to Hotspot. You can see quite a bit taller. And here he is next to Groove, who's quite a bit shorter. So yeah, he's your usual deluxe size right in between the two other classes. And looking at First Aid himself, I like him a lot more than I liked Off-Road. Not just the remold in the legs that help his other modes look a lot more solid, but it just... I don't know, the color scheme here works better. The body shape works better for me as like a medical officer rather than a warrior. I don't know, something about it just kind of gives me this impression of like an armored medical officer dodging attacks as he's trying to go out there and help his buddies, you know? Something about it just works for me like that. And I'm a fanboy for Transformer medical officers for some reason. Ratchet is one of my favorite Autobots, so First Aid comes really close for me, and I really like his look. I do wish he had some more paint, though. I wish some paint went to the arms. I do wish the legs, especially with this detail going down right here, I wish some blue or some silver had been added to that. But besides that, he's actually pretty nice looking. Maybe a little bit along the bottom here, too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to touch your crotch plate. Calm down. As far as his accessories go, you do get this, of course, that you can use as I mentioned, as like a smoke weapon, or maybe a fire extinguisher can come out, or you can use it for a lot of things. You could also do the same thing that all of them can do, where you can flip it around and use it as a shield, you know, all the usual stuff. And you can take his axe, put it in his hand. There is a peg on the side of the axe, so you can hold it as a gun, I guess, but it looks really stupid. It looks like you're just holding an axe sideways, so I just give it to him as an axe. And something about that just really works for me. It looks like he's ready to like break down a door to go save somebody, or maybe just get bash a Decepticon out of his way as he runs through the war zone. Oh, it's really cool. I also forgot to mention the details on the axe. It does have a weird bend to it, but I do like the silver on it, on the edge there. And you do get like this engine detailing on it. That's pretty nice. You do get like piping detailing on this too, which is pretty cool. He does have a lot of nice little details. You can actually see some little bit of circuitry details in there that's painted silver. You do get some silver on the chest plate that kind of emulate windows forming in his chest. Get a little bit of blue on the tips there to kind of make it look like his headlights or his rear lights. Once again, it does have some nice details in the legs. I just wish the paint helped pop that out a little more. Nothing really special on the insides of the legs, but as mentioned, under his arm he does have some pretty neat details, which I always appreciate, having these special details. I just wish it wasn't so hollow in there. But from the front, he looks perfectly fine. And once again, this is all paint. I might complain about the paint a little bit, but this entire chest piece, except for this middle connector piece, but all this right here, that's all paint. That is all completely painted that nice bright red. Because like I mentioned, if you look on the inside, it's white. So red with some silver detailing. That is a lot of nice paint for this little figure, especially since he already had a good chunk of it in vehicle mode. And some of it is still usable in the robot mode, since they do form his arms and his shoulder blades. And the head is pretty nice too. You do get some nice crest detailing on the top of the head with a nice silver mouth plate and then a blue visor. Just enough detailing to make it look interesting without giving him an actual face, I guess. You can actually deploy the shoulder blades if you want, but you have to get the back kibble out of the way. But you can actually have him have like a Mega Man X style shoulder blades, if you so wish. Which works for me. I always like to see shoulder blades on figures, especially on robots. I'm not sure why, but shoulder blades always look really cool. Maybe it's just my obsession with Dragon Ball Z. Who knows? I also wish this kibble that stick out past his hand. I wish it would flip around or something, or go under the arm maybe. But small complaints. As far as articulation goes, his head is on a ball joint. You can't really use the ball joint itself to look up or anything, as he has this kind of corner thing going on. So unfortunately, he can only look slightly up and down, but he can look all the way around perfectly fine. You do get ball joints at the shoulder, and you do have to work with the kibble in the shoulders and the back, but you can't get his arm going outward. You do get a swivel. You do get this whole ratcheted elbow thing, and it's not wearing away like the other figures are. So I don't know if they just used a bare plastic or what. You do get a waist swivel, of course, that can also be used as the arm swivel in this Defensor mode. You do get some ball jointed hips, and they can only go out that far due to the spike at the top of them, but decent amount of range. You do get a swivel, and you do get a knee joint. So he's got enough to work as a medical officer. You can even get him in like with how wide his legs are, you can even get him in like a running pose, if you so wish. Could also do one of these high flying kicks. I'm not sure. I really try it. Let's see if he can do it. Come on, work with me, First Aid. And I don't think he can do it Even with his wide... No, there we go. You can do like a super wide kick if you so wish. You can have him do some karate poses. Now all you need is a set to confirm the kick. There. Now you can get him like kind of kicking or more like flails. More like he slipped on a banana peel. But you can do those kind of crazy poses if you wish. Yeah, let's give him his axe. Make him look threatening. So yeah, that's first aid. Decent paint. I do wish it was like just a touch more, especially on the legs and the rear lights, but he's got enough to get by. More than enough to get by, actually. Good vehicle mode. The remolding really helps with his look and in his all of his other modes. His robot mode's really well painted, looks pretty nice, and it really works for like a armored war office, armored medical officer in the middle of a war zone. And I just really think he looks good. He's probably my favorite deluxe out of all of them. Oh, either him or Rook. The figures really just get better from here. I kind of started from like worst to best here. So yeah, if you like ambulance transformers, you like medical transformers, or if you just want something to complete your Defensor set, I highly recommend First Aid. He really is a really good figure. Rook. So now Rook is basically a replacement for Groove, since they're trying to keep Groove as a motorcycle in the Legends class, thus I guess making him proportionally more acceptable in the vehicle mode. And Rook here is a new character who is a SWAT vehicle of some kind. I would say like a SWAT van, but I don't know. It looks more like something you would see in Saints Row 3 when the stags start coming after you. Or maybe it looks like the Mako. It actually kind of looks a lot like the Mako from Mass Effect. I don't know, it's just this like all-terrain six-wheeled vehicle that does look like it could do some damage. It certainly looks threatening. It has police template there and SWAT there. Same thing on their sides, and it's got the same thing right there. The deco's pretty nice. It fits in pretty well for Defensor. You know, I got white and blue, a little and black, a little bit of silver and gray, and just a little bit yellow for the headlights. And it is painted pretty nice. Yeah, I mean, like I said, yellow for the headlights, blue for the front bumper, and even some, that's not paint, that's plastic right here, but still. The blue goes all the way down, despite these all being different pieces, which is pretty nice. You do get some silver here where the tools are, where you see you got like an axe, and you got like an extinguisher by the looks of it. Also some little fuel tank things here that are also painted in silver. The same thing on the other side, just in reverse. And not much really on top, other than like the gunmetal silver for the windows. But it's got enough color variation to look pretty nice. It's also got like a little black stripe of plastic going down this way. So yeah, it's a pretty cool looking truck. You might notice a giant pig sticking up the top here. We'll get to that after we get to the comparisons, where we have his remold into one of the Combaticons. Swindle, there we go. I don't know why his name was slipping my mind, considering Combaticons are my favorite. But you can see humongous remold, but I'll get into more detail when I get to his review later on. And here he is next to Blades, just to get you a good idea of size. So yeah. He does share an interesting gimmick with Blades, particularly because you might notice that unlike all the other little hand-foot weapons, there's a peg hole in Rook's. It's so that way you can peg it down and do that, which is why a lot of people thought he would be remade into Brawl instead of Swindle, since, you know, you could use this as a tank turret. But it does allow for some pretty cool stuff. Plus, he also has a peg hole in the front that allows for his other weapon, this little extendo claw. You can actually see the detail on it. It does have like these little wires and springs in it to make it look like it could extend outward. And you can put down to the front, and you could either have, you know, either a vehicle for destroying, or you could say it's a vehicle for exploring. You could say, or even maybe bomb diffusion, I don't know. And maybe even these are just to clear out rubble, not to destroy things. So that's pretty cool. You also get a pig hole up here if you want it further up, like this. I do wish this actually could extend, like as a little gimmick, because this would be really cool to use. Personally, I like to display it like this with this back here, so that way you can kind of rotate it around and aim it upward. However, since he does have this big old peg hole up here, and Blades is molded to have a peg hole on the bottom, you can actually combine the two by lining it up and just pegging Blades to the top there. This doesn't particularly do anything, doesn't do anything fancy, but you could have it displaying like Blades carrying Rook around, or you could have it to where it's like a giant tank. You could open the front part of Blades up here to open for the peg hole to put in a weapon. Speaking of weapons, since there is a peg hole on this, you could stack it up, like so. And you can even attach Rook's weapon to blades here. Like I said, you could really just start building up a giant tank of destruction. So let's get Rook's weapons back off of blades there, but it is a really cool gimmick. It does carry over to Vortex and Swindle, actually. But let's crotch plate. There we go. We're just naming the crotch plate really hard. I also kind of like these down here because you can also peg his weapon and actually store it on him like this, though. You just peg it right there like that. You can also peg it up here if you wish. Store his weapon like that. Give him an extendo claw on his knee. But yeah, it's a pretty decent foot mode. It's fairly solid. And there you have his arm mode, which is pretty nice. Yeah, give him his extendo claw. Or maybe put it down here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there you have his arm mode. It's a pretty nice little arm, you know. I don't like the hole right here, but it is fairly solid looking otherwise. It does give him a nice big bulky shoulder. So yeah, I think Rook holds up well as an arm. And finally, his mighty robot mode. Alright, to get comparisons out of the way. Here's Rook next to Swindle, and you can see a lot more of the similarities here in robot mode. And just for good measure, let's get Blades in here. Just to give you a good idea of how much bulk he's got compared to Blades. Jesus, he will crush Blades in a fight. So as far as the details go, I do like Rook's head. It's kind of like a football player, but also kind of crossed with like a Rook from chess, with the 4 plates he has going around his head there. So that's a pretty neat design. I do like that you can actually see his face sculpted in there. Just got like I mentioned, it's like a football player helmet. He has an Abba symbol right at the top of his head too. That's pretty neat, actually. I don't know why, but I don't think we've ever seen something like that. Or if we have, it's been a long time. I think the only thing I can think of is like Rhinox, who has maximal symbols on the top of his head. And there's dust up here. I should wipe that down before I start this review. Oh well. You can see he basically carries over the same color scheme of white, blue, and black being his main colors, with a little bit of gray mixed in, mainly connector piece, and a little bit of silver on the shoulders. There are some new details, some new paint details. You do get the shins that are nicely painted in black, and some details on the legs. All of this was on the bottom of the vehicle mode, so you can see a better idea now. And the chest has a little bit of blue paint mixed into there. And like the head is really nicely painted with the blue eyes and the silver face skin battle mask, I guess I should call it. So yeah, really nicely painted actually. And you still got... The only complaint I have is I wish they had just put a hinge here, just let this panel collapse. Because this is a pretty big panel, like... Swindle has the same issue, but it's like a very small little dagger, you know. Well, here we got a pretty big panel, and it will stick you in your hands. It's not sharp or anything, but it feels awkward to hold, just have this panel, it looks awkward just having this panel sticking down. You also see his hands are actually molded to have these kind of thrusters kind of thing, or just blasters molded in. This would actually probably make a pretty decent Mega Man custom. I should write that down. Or maybe a Gutsman custom. Anyway, you see his hands are actually molded right there with these big blaster units at the end. You might notice, unlike most Transformers, he doesn't have a peg hole in his hands. That's because they're in the front. And that's where his accessories come in, as they can peg in, and you can now give him an extendo claw. Or whatever you want to call this, but I call it the extendo claw because that's what it looks like, especially if you turn it this way and he doesn't have a hand anymore. You can give him a claw. And what's really cool is if you're not sure, you could actually turn this to its combined mode hand, and you can actually give him combiner hands. So if you actually got a second one, you could actually give him full-on combiner hands in both hands, which is a really cool gimmick. I really like that they included this. It does look a little weird sometimes, especially if you look at it from like directions like this where you still see the regular hands. But since from like two of the directions you really can't see them, which is why I mainly display them usually like this, so that way you can't really see the normal hands. You can really get like a giant hand, or all kinds of our weapons can really go in. You could put the axe there, you could put guns there, you could do a lot of things with this. Probably great for customizing too, since you could just peg them on. But yeah, you can technically count this as articulation. And it's just a really cool gimmick. Speaking of articulation, his head is on a ball joint. So you can look all around, look up, look down, you know. And his neck kind of comes with him, even though this is like his neck down here, it kind of comes with him when he looks up, so that's a little odd. He does have these struts, you could have the arms kind of go back like that, and use that hinge if you need to. But they are also fully ball jointed, so 90 degrees outward, full rotation, all that good stuff. rotation above the elbow. Elbow goes just a hair over 90 degrees. If you do want to count it, I guess, you could count the hand articulation here, because you can swivel. Got a hinge there, got fingers, got thumb going on 2 different hinges. Might as well go over it, because it does kind of count, and you can swivel this as well. You can swivel at the waist, which is really nice. Get fully ball-jointed hips, so you can do the full splits either way. Get a 90-degree knee, and you actually get foot articulation, as his feet are actually hinged to go out this far. Can only go up to this far, but you can get him a more natural stance with the legs being apart, so that's pretty nice, and it's really helpful when posing him. And of course, he still has the peg on the back if you wish to store a weapon back there. You can peg, fold it up, peg it like that, and you could give him like an over-the-shoulder missile launcher, which is pretty cool. Could do the same thing with extendo arm, I guess, but it looks better to have the shoulder thing. Go ahead and put it here, actually. There you go. And now you can use all kinds of stuff. So yeah, Rook's a really fantastic little figure. Personally, I think both of his limb modes are really good. I really like the vehicle mode. It's very solid looking, very powerful. And in his robot mode, it's just fantastic. The paint's pretty nice. The head mold is really nice. The articulation is fantastic. It's probably the best articulation out of any of the deluxes, especially with the foot molding. And the gimmick that works with him really pushes him over the top. But he has everything you would want in a Transformer for both kids and collectors. The only thing that really doesn't go for him is that he's not one of the G1 Protectobots. That's literally the only thing that would probably hold somebody back from wanting him, is that he's not one of the G1 Protectobots. But if they were to kick, if Groove had to be replaced by anybody, I'm glad it was a really, really good figure like this. It wasn't just a repaint of another figure, and granted, he was later turned into Swindle, but technically speaking, the first chance we got with this mold is this one, and unlike like Vortex and Alpha Bravo and Blazer are all the same, pretty much the only thing that's the same between this and Swindle is the transformation, because there's heavy remolding all over the place to the point that their vehicles almost don't look the same. Like, if you put the two of them next to each other, a casual fan would probably be hard-pressed to realize they're the same figure. So, it is an absolute beautiful figure and beautiful toy. I would recommend this guy to anybody who likes Transformers. Like, even if you don't like Combiner Wars, if there's only one figure you're going to get from Deluxe you're going to get from Combiner Wars, I would say, hey, it has to be this guy. He's absolutely one of the best figures out there. Just everything that he does, all the articulation, all the paint, all the remolding, the gimmicks, just everything that he can do. He does everything that both Hasbro and fans want in one figure. I just wish the rest of the line was like this guy is the only downside. But that's not his issue, that's the other figure's issues. As far as he's concerned, he's one of the best figures out there. So I highly recommend him if you don't have him, even if you're not collecting for Defensor, even if you don't want him as part of your Defensor. Just to have him as a separate box, because he's so good on his own. And we're on the final member of the Defensor team. This is the Transformers Combiner Wars Voyager class Hotspot, who of course forms the chest and head for Defensor. I will form the head. Not sure I'm making a Voltron reference there. He does have a pretty heavy remold in the form of Onslaught, and they might not look like remold at first, but if you turn Hotspot around this way, you start to see it really fast. As you can see, basically Onslaught's just him backwards with the front of the vehicle taken off, as well as a huge change to the middle section. So yeah, pretty heavy revision from the two. If you're wondering what that was my girlfriend. But yeah, gives you a pretty good idea of how these two look together. Because of the front part, Hotspot is a bit longer, so. And for comparison, here he is also with Rook, who is a Deluxe class, so much shorter. Or at least not as long. I guess height-wise he might be about the same. So yeah, he's a pretty nice looking fire truck. This would actually probably work pretty well as a repaint to RID Optimus Prime, the 2000 RID, or Fire Convoy if you prefer, from Car Robots. I'm pretty sure somebody's already done custom of that. But it looks pretty nice. Got little sirens here. Got just like all the others, he has a Tampo with fire rescue going right over a door. Yeah, that's actually a door right there. How the heck does this door look? It looks like it would just fall. I guess those are steps there, maybe? Who knows? Wheels spin pretty well. Figure rolls pretty nicely. You actually do see on the front, we do get some headlights and little grill, like I guess a little bar piece here that could be a grill, done in some silver. And the windows and the windshield wipers are painted in black on the sides as well. Well, the frame is painted over too, so it might obscure some details. Get this little red line here. I do like the Autobot symbol where it's actually on fire. Might make it seem a little weird since they're a fire rescue, but I guess it kind of works. The siren up here is done in nice red with the little frame left unpainted. You also see his peekaboo head. We'll get to that in a minute. It does have the crane or the ladder or the hose up here, but none of it's painted, it's just all plastic. Also, some inside parts are painted, that's for the later modes. But yeah, not a lot of paint in vehicle mode. At least not a lot of it for the vehicle mode, but it looks pretty nice. The only complaint I really have is the fists are just kind of, well, I have two complaints. One, the fists are just kind of left open here. There's just fists hanging out. I feel like they could have had a hinge and had these pushed back into here with a little tab to pull them out. I don't know, I feel like this was an easy fix considering how much room there is in there. Because this up here doesn't do anything either. I mean, you can even see there's a gap right there. That's how hollow it is. Speaking of hollowness, yeah, face just peeking up at you there, like a monster under your bed. Just, hello. I mean, I guess you can flip the head around. You can pull it out, flip it around, push it back in. But still, you just see the head right there. Just means he's not staring up at you. Plus, the face sticks down a bit further if you have it flipped that way, so to tuck it up there, you have to do it that way. Also, you could use the chest plate to help the silhouette, because, you know, if you leave the chest plate flipped up, it kind of leaves these little bumps, angles in. Well, if you flip it out, you can see it kind of makes a straight line, even though there's just this red bit that's down there. And it doesn't look much better from the bottom. From the bottom, it's just like legs, arms, head, chest plate. So yeah. Also, he does have this big gap at the top here. Like back here, there's these little gaps, but at least it's kind of covered. Here's just a big, wide gap right there. And also it has the same problem going in the opposite direction. So yeah, not the best vehicle mode, but honestly, I will say his vehicle mode is probably the weakest of his three modes. But that's pretty nice for Combiner Wars, because usually it's the chest mode or something that's the weakest. Having the vehicle mode be the weakest, I'm okay with. It's still not a bad vehicle mode, it's just not the best. I do like a lot of detailing in here. Up here is actually Defensor's head, and you can actually see it has that kind of plating on the bottom there for a figure will stand. At that time, no figure could fit in there, but you could take it, now that we have the Titan Masters, you can actually take a Titan Master and it fits perfectly in there. I actually kind of wonder if they planned that out. That's kind of cool. He actually does have articulation in this mode. I mean, you get a swivel here, you get a hinge right back here, you get a hinge up here, you get a hinge in the middle of the ladder, and you get a hinge at the end. So when you have a lot of little hinges to work with, and as well as the swivel to work with to kind of change this around. I personally leave the white part solid, and you just kind of do like that, you know, save a cat in a tree or something. Whatever Hotspot's up to today. But yeah, pretty good vehicle mode. Let's get down to oh wait, before we get to transformation, he does have his weapons. You can, there's a lot of places to peg them in. Personally, I leave them back here, and there's two different pegs. I peg them by the smaller pegs on the sides of the guns because it fits in a bit better. Personally, I leave them right here, and then you can kind of use them from there to aim up and down. But there are also pegs right here, peg holes right here, but you need to use longer pegs for them. But if you want like the side weapon, for like a lot of the other Combiner Wars figures had, if the gun doesn't go flying off. And you could also peg them at the very front, if you so wish. Oh, if I don't drop them. And they don't hold on very well, but you could give them an armed front, so I guess you could put out fire spare that way. Or just shoot from the front there, you know. Whatever Hotspot needs at that moment. Kind of looks like a scorpion tail. But yeah, pretty nice vehicle mode. Alright, so now we have Hotspot in his robot mode. Let's go ahead and show you him next to Onslaught, his remold. And you can see a bit more differences between two here. Well, mostly. Biggest difference right now is their feet. Mainly it's the paint applications. Like they have this very similar molding, but a lot of different paint and even where it's placed, because Hotspot has these like little lines going through his shoulders, while Onslaught just has solid colors there. And the chest design is very different as well as the head design. Even their back kibble is also very different. Onslaught also has heels because of how big his is. I mean, a lot of people are asking why Hotspot didn't get heels, but he kind of has the third leg of Doom there that his cable forms. So, oh, apparently he can't stand up. He's a little drunk. But you know, there they are together. They are pretty, I mean, look at them side by side, they look very similar, but if you saw them separately, you wouldn't really think they were remolds. And there he is with Rook for good comparison. The leader of the Protectobots. So let's get his Onslaught out of the way, get Rook out of the way. He's already had his review. He also still has his guns, which he can of course hold. And they look pretty good in his hands. Gives him kind of like, it could be like a weapon, or because it has these little hosing details. It could also, he even has a little hose kind of going along the barrel too. Could also be a weapon used for water to kind of put out fires or such, or maybe extinguishers. So, kind of works for the Protectobot leader. You can also combine them to make a big gun. Doesn't kind of quite work as well as the Pyrion's did, because it just looks like a giant, it just doesn't look like a giant gun, it looks like two guns pegged together. But I mean, you could flip one upside down, or you could flip that one upside down. You could do one of the two to kind of help it. I mean, you probably have to do it this way in order to make it look right. And I guess you could give them like a giant, it might look a bit more like a giant gun, especially with a little scope coming over the top there. But I'll be honest, this personally doesn't work for me. I just keep them as two separate guns. Also, most often I just have them pegged onto the back, because there are still these peg holes right here that were the sides of the crane, or the, crane ladder, that you just peg in like that. You could even point them forward, make them look like Blastoise. Actually, because he has the molding in his mouth, he might actually work as a custom Blastoise. That'd be kind of fun. Oh yeah, so as far as details go, there is quite a few new details. If you look at the arms, you can actually see a little line going down them that's begging to be painted, since his arms are completely unpainted. He has a little cuff and armor piece going around his hands, which look pretty nice. His hands are really nicely molded with all the fingers. Even his middle digit kind of sticking out slightly because it's his bigger finger. I mean, I guess humans do kind of have that too. You can even see there's kind of like suspension and springs in here that kind of make for like an armored fist and kind of make it look like you could actually take a hit, because it would kind of bounce and not hurt him quite as bad. Pretty neat little detail. I do have a problem with my leg, because you can see the leg, the mushroom peg is one to slide off and start to stick out, and every now and then just gotta kind of shift it back into place. His feet are just the front windshield just split in half, going opposite directions. But they do work pretty well as feet, and they are slanted to kind of have his feet open like that. Some of the new details, these are technically for Defensor, but you can see them in this mode too. You get some little piping suspension detail there. You get some pipes going through here. Get a lot of nice piping detail in there, and this kind of shows one of his aesthetics where he's got like this stripe thing going on. He got silver with little red stripes going across. This actually continues to the shoulders, and this detail is for Hotspot, because Defensor you see from this way. So this detail actually is for Hotspot, and he has it continued on his chest plate as well with this silver with red stripes going over. Along with all this little like suspension piping detail in the middle of the chest, similar gearing and piping detail all in that silver, and it just makes for a pretty neat aesthetic for him. I also like how they handle the face. I know in the cartoon he technically had his face was all painted all in black with the red eyes, but I do like this face a bit better. This is one of the few times where I actually like the toy accuracy better. I think this is toy accurate. I could be wrong. It might actually be anime accurate. I don't remember. Actually, I think the toys were the ones that had the dark face, but I do like how this looks a lot more, because it kind of makes, I feel like the black details will just kind of make all the I feel like the black will just make all the details kind of disappear like it does here and up here. They don't quite pop quite right with it's all black. And I love a lot of details we have here. We have he's very much an Optimus Prime looking fellow. You know, you got the antennas, you got the crest coming down, you got the mouth plate, got the serious eyes. I mean, he very much does look like Optimus Prime, which works a lot more towards being RID Optimus repaint. I kind of wish they did do that, with how many weird Combiner Wars repaints we did get. At the very least, like the BotCon one should have been something. But his eyes are painted right, and he does have a different blue painted over for his mouth plate, which looks pretty nice. He does have these like eyebrow ridges that kind of look like a knight's helmet or something, kind of going over. And it goes all around wraps all around the back too. So a lot of nice detailing. Only complaint here is this chest plate does not tab in, like it tabs in but doesn't really hold. It pops off extremely easily, and it even pops off the hinge. Like, this is also the cheapest, most lightweight piece ever. I mean, it's very lightweight. It's very, very cheap little piece of plastic that comes off there, and it's not, I guess it's good it's not pinned in, because it would probably fall out, break really easily, but yeah, I mean, it does not take, it takes no effort whatsoever to pop it off. So yeah, if you're buying a second hand, make sure it has a chest plate, because it probably be lost very easily. And it does kind of have this usual detail of like just being having the chest molded into a block, kind of like how Blades was. Where it's just, there's a chest there, but you can see it's just molded into the block, and it's kind of weird looking too, because his chest is smaller than his pelvis area. So it kind of does make it look like the block is his actual chest, rather than this little slanted part. But the red does kind of help break that up since it sticks out a bit. So, kind of 50-50 there. As far as articulation go, he has pretty good articulation. I mean, you got a swivel going all the way around. It is on a ball joint, so you can't really have the head looking up, but you can have it looking down. So if he was like looking down at Rook talking to him, you could get that going. The shoulders are ratcheted. Oh wait, if he doesn't get stuck on his gun, so I might have to fold this back. The kibble only interferes when it's got the guns attached. You do get going outward, which isn't ratchet, but it's got 2 set places. It's not allowed ratchet, at least. The arms do go outward on their own, though, without the shoulders having to be moved. So you got 2 outward movements. You do get a double elbow, and with a swivel right in the middle, so you have one elbow that has no swivel, and you have the other elbow that does have a swivel. So you got a little bit of both, for whichever one you need. Which does allow him to do this whole kind of, you know, gonna beat you up kind of look. You know, you make it look like he's slamming his fists together, right? Like he's gonna beat somebody up. No waist swivel, unfortunately, even though they could have probably cut one right here. You do get ratchets going outward, not quite as loud as his shoulder ratchets. You get going forward, which are about as loud as his shoulder ratchets. You do get a mushroom peg that works pretty well, and you do get a single knee joint, and you can disconnect it, use a double knee joint. But honestly, I get about all the knee movement I need from just that. You can also technically count his ankle movement because the feet do unpeg and go forward. And this isn't just force, you could actually get it kind of working with him kind of leaning forward on the ankle. So you can do that if you wish. You can also start unfolding the backpack kibble and using that as a giant crane. You can make it look like Scorponok almost with it coming over his shoulder. But I'm just going over the official stuff here. I only showed the ankle thing just because it's just one peg. You know, it's pretty easy to use. You can give him a wider stance or something, or make him look like he's stepping forward. A lot of stuff you can do with that. He also has a third leg for balance, so that's pretty nice. At least the kibble has a use in this mode. It's not just kibble weighing him down. So yeah, Hotspot I think has probably the best out of all the quote-unquote leaders of the teams. I think he's probably the best mold. And I do like his vehicle mode a lot better than Onslaught's vehicle mode because, you know, giant head, obvious Bruticus head on that one. At least Defensor's head kind of hidden away a bit. It's not immediately obvious that this is the head right here. So yeah, I think he's probably the best Voyager we got out of Combining Wars because Superion's pretty nice, or not Superion, the Cyclonus / Silverbolt mode is pretty nice, but this one's articulation and such works a bit better, and the robot mode just looks a bit better. Well, I just have the problem with the plastic kind of wearing away on the elbow ratchets. Oh well. Now, speaking of Defensor, let's get into his torso mode. I think this is a pretty nice torso mode. It's very solid looking. From the side, he is rather flat, mainly around the leg area. But I really like how they handled the crane and having it wrapped around the figure. I think the G1 figure might have done that too, but I can't quite remember. But I really like how it handles it because it makes it very solid. No loose pieces. The chest plate, I will admit the chest plate does come untabbed fairly easily. But it's not too hard to get back in place, especially once there's weight up here. It's really comes undone easily. But it looks pretty good. You can see it once again brings forward these details that were on the side legs, now they're on the front. And he has the same detailing here on the front. Not quite as deep because it is just a thin chest plate, but I do like to continue that detail. Even though these parts are now covered up, I wish they somehow got brought forward. But it does make for a very wide, very solid looking chest plate. It covers up the arm pieces, which a lot of the others didn't really do quite well. It looks pretty nice. Got a little Autobot symbol template there. Got some nice paints on the face with little, like, kind of skeletal design around his head, because you can see that the side parts are actually right around the chin strap. There is actually some little design in there where you kind of looks like it collapsed in. Really nice big crest. Got little like sunglasses kind of going on for his eyes that are nice and blue. Got the wiring detail going up. Chest plate looks, like I said, very nice and solid. Got this bar detailing going through. You got little circuitry stuff all in there. Got an obvious peg hole here that's for Groove's chest plate mode. The back is just kind of Hotspot just kind of holding up his fist with his head tucked away. But yeah, he's a pretty nice looking chest mode, and we'll get more of him when we do get to the Defensor's review. But for now, that's Hotspot reviewed. Overall, I would say good torso mode, good robot mode. Vehicle mode's probably his weakest mode, but even that's not bad at the very least. So I'd still say I'd say he's very much worth it. If you like Defensor, if you like the Protectobots, he's a very good figure. Probably one of the best in Combiner Wars. Only figure I like more is probably Rook, but he's such a really good deluxe. But yeah, highly recommend him. And we're finally with the big guy himself, Transformers Combiner Wars Combiner Defensor. Now, of course, these are made of the Protectobots. I do not have Combiner Wars Groove. This is still using Rook. I'll do an update whenever I get around getting Deluxe Groove. But I figured I'd start with how you actually attach the limbs. And there's your basic Defensor in his combined mode. There, I do also have the Legends Groove that attaches a chest plate, but I'll get to that in a second. Because I want to talk about the detail it's here without Groove. I do like the head. Let's start with the head. I really do like the head. It's got nice silver paint. It's got some blue paint for the eyes, which kind of come off almost like sunglasses. Which does look pretty nice. It does have a very nice crest around the head. With a little venting detail. And it's got little details from the crane mode. I really like the detail going through the chest plate too, like the basic chest plate. You got it kind of continues the silver and the red lines that are on the legs on the chest plate. You get a very small Autobot decal. I do wish he had a much bigger Autobot symbol. Like, he looks like he's meant just for like a big Autobot symbol like right in the middle or something. Or at least like right here. Much bigger than what it has, but what can you do? He does actually have very small little circuitry details right above the silver and the red, which is kind of interesting. And then he has some detail along the sides here. He's got these little lines here. This is pretty hollow considering how many little spaces are just kind of holes. I will admit that, but it does look pretty cool and kind of looks like he's being constructed or something. You do get the details in here, which are very similar to what's up here. And again, with the silver and the red, which kind of interesting. You also have those details right above the silver and the red on both the legs and on the chest plate, so that's pretty interesting. And one thing I definitely like about how the Protectobots look as Defensor, they look very cohesive. They all have pretty much the same color scheme. I mean, I will admit Blades does stick out a little bit since nobody else has that much red. But, I mean, there is a bit of red on First Aid here, and there is some red going across Defensor's chest plate, so it is enough that it doesn't stick out too much. This is the basic configuration for where you have these two as the arms and these two as the legs. My only problem with this configuration is actually that Blades is a very scrawny arm, like very scrawny, very short, while Rook's a lot bulkier as an arm. And they both look good, but they just don't look good together, because together it makes them look a little lopsided with it. As I mentioned, it does look a little strange to have this really scrawny arm. Also, I do have Blades' basic configuration. What I actually prefer is I actually take the arm and fold it up like so. But I did want to start with the original configuration to kind of show it. But yeah, he actually does look pretty good like this. I think overall Defensor is a very nice looking combiner. Now I am going to swap over to his other configuration, and I'll also include Groove in that configuration, so let's go ahead and do that. Alright, now I got Defensor in his alternate configuration. Starting with the legs, I think they look fine. I do like how, since Blades is kind of scrawnier, being a helicopter, they leave the arms on to kind of help bulk him out a little bit, to make him look almost as wide as the others. And it kind of works from the front, but yeah, from the sides and all that, it does look a little odd, and he is very small compared to the others. But you kind of expect that from a helicopter, and he still looks good enough to work as a leg. With Rook, you are kind of stuck with this big kneecap, which, I mean, you can kind of collapse this down if you want, but you really can't do anything and just have it hang there. So you are just kind of left with this giant kneecap on Rook, but it looks pretty good. It looks like a solid leg, you know. He just has a really big knee pad on the front. Which, Streetwise actually has similar things, so I guess those two might look good together. So here we also have Groove as the chest plate, which isn't G1, but it doesn't look bad per se. And it does add some more Autobot sigils. I just wish they were bigger instead of these little stars. But it does make a decent looking chest plate. It does allow Groove to still combine in without being a limb. And yeah, I actually do like how it looks. I like how little pieces hang down. It does look okay. I mean, from the side it looks a little weird because it is just a little chunk. It really doesn't actually cover that much as a chest plate, but I don't know. I've seen worse. I think he works better than, like, say, Blackjack or Rodimus did as chest plates. Streetwise is probably my least favorite of the arms, as he looks a little odd to me, just because you have a shoulder that's kind of scrawny, but then you have a forearm that's much wider. When in most cases you would kind of want the reverse of that. So it does look really odd, plus it's like bulky, but it's like a fake bulk, because if you look at it from the side, yeah, not quite as bulky. Oh, he does bring a little bit of red, so he kind of works into like that. I noticed each of them are kind of missing like one colors that the other have, like Hotspot doesn't have a lot of white, First Aid doesn't have a lot of blue, Streetwise doesn't have a lot of black, Rook doesn't have a lot of red, and Blades doesn't have a lot of blue, or any blue actually, except for his face. So that is one interesting thing I picked up on. But yeah, I do think he's probably the least good-looking arm. Not the worst, just the least good-looking. Plus, you're kind of just stuck with this card kibble, which you can kind of configure into a shoulder blade if you want. And then First Aid, I think, is probably one of the better-looking arms. Him and Rook, I think, are probably the best arms. Rook does have that hollow piece, but still. You do get a nice, bulky-looking forearms if you want really strong looking Defensor, and the shoulder is a bit of a mess, but it is fixable if you fold out the front part and just simply fold the arms in a different way. You can get kind of more of a shoulder blade look just like Streetwise there, which does reveal more of down here, but I think it looks a bit more solid, especially having this going straight across instead of sticking down. And it covers over the hole a bit better, that the gaps there right here. Like I said, it makes it just look a bit more solid and a bit more strong. Personally, what I do is I like to have First Aid and Rook as the arms, and then have Streetwise and Blades as the legs. So I normally swap these around. I also usually sometimes swap around to where I have Streetwise and Rook as the arms, as like kind of like a blue on top, red on bottom, and switch around red on top, blue on bottom. Since First Aid and Blades do have a lot of red, while Streetwise and Rook have a lot of blue. But that's just my personal thing. I think they all work enough to work as limbs without looking a little odd. Like I said, I would probably switch Streetwise and Rook, but as it is, he is a very nice looking combiner. He does have a very nice bulky look. I might actually keep him like this for a little bit, because he does look pretty nice, especially like the shoulder blades going on here. Kind of looks like a Megazord almost. As far as our... oh wait, let's go do a size comparison. I do have Bruticus here, who shares 3 of the components that Defensor has, including his core. And you see, despite sharing 3 of the same molds, they actually look very different. Mainly because Bruticus has Onslaught has such a huge remold and transforms a bit differently, but still, considering they do share a lot of parts, they don't look very similar at all. Granted, I have it kind of reversed right now, but I don't know, I guess even if I were to put Blades as the arm and leave Rook down here, they still would not look completely the same. They just look so different considering they share so many parts. And I really like that. So Bruticus, get back out of there. As far as articulation on Defensor, he's got a decent amount. You do get a swivel up at the head. The arms, I'm just going to cover one, by the way, I'm just going to cover one arm because they all pretty much have the same articulation. The arms are ratcheted using the connector piece, forward and outward. And they can do a full 360, although Kibble may clash a little bit. Groove really does not work as a chest blade. It comes apart way too easily. You do get a swivel that used to be the waist joint. The hip joints work as an elbow as well as the knee joints, but as I mentioned, the Kibble can get away. Like, Streetwise can only go this far, while same with First Aid, they're just so bulky or there's Kibble. But you can get a full 90-degree elbow, and it looks a bit natural since you're using 2 joints. And of course, since the hands are pegged in, they can swivel. You do get the hinge, you do get the finger hinge. The thumb has 2 hinges where it can go up and down, and it can also go like so, open and closing. So you can change the hands as you wish. the legs, he is a bit strange because his leg joint does not start here, it starts up here because he is using Hotspot's legs. So when you use a leg, oh, Hotspot's tire just popped off. That does happen. It gets caught on the little chest piece sticking down like that, so let me move that out one click, put the tire back on. That has happened a couple times before, so just beware of that. It doesn't break the tire, but it does cause it to pop off very easy. But you do get ratchets going outward, you know, you do get ratchets going forward and back. And they're pretty strong ratchets, so you can get them going with a leg pose if you balance it right, like that. You'd have the legs apart if you wish. They are really tricky to work with, though, just because of how deep they're in there. I mean, here they're at where his waist should be, not where his legs should be. So they are really weird to work, and they can look a little odd too because of that kind of thing. Like especially if you get the legs apart, it can look a little weird. You also get a swivel in there, you know. You do get knee joints that work the same as the arm joints, and you can also swivel them. And you can also swivel the feet, and you can technically get toe movement and all that, although I'm not sure you can really use that with how small it is. And there's no rocker or anything, so... Oh! Unfortunately, Hasbro couldn't figure out how to put a hinge on top of his pegs, and his chest plate really likes to come undone. Not just groove, but like the chest plate up here. Not behaving well for a review. Work with me, Defensor, work with me. There. Alright. And finally, of course, he does have all of his weapons. There are all of the weapons that the figures do come with. You can store them in their various modes, which I can go ahead and peg all those on. There's usually room somewhere on each of them in each mode to peg them somewhere. So however you want to handle that, I personally just peg them on where I can, since they're kind of small. And then of course you do have the two guns that were Hotspot, and you can peg them together for his combined gun, I guess. Which looks plainly ridiculous because it's just two guns sitting back to back. They didn't even try, so I don't do that. I just give it to him, Defensor, as twin pistols, if you will. I mean, they practically are pistols, how big Defensor is, so. But yeah, you can get that going. And that looks pretty good, actually. And I mean, if you want, you can also still store these as well. There's, like I mentioned, there's various peg holes. It's a little wobbly right now. But I also find that you can peg him into Hotspot's hands up here. And you can get him like a similar thing to Bruticus, where you have the two guns sticking up over his head. Or maybe look for like Blastoise, whichever you prefer. So yeah, that is Defensor. Sorry for this review, I know it's been a bit of a mess, but the figure just didn't want to work with me, I guess. He can be a little wobbly, I mean, granted he's not going to fall apart, I mean, he holds together well, but his joints are slightly loose everywhere. There are a little bit too much room in each ratchet for my taste. And I will admit the legs are a wonky thing with how the hip joints work. But there's a lot of fixes to that. There's a lot, you can extend them out to use Hotspot's full legs. You know, you can get a chest plate that will cover over that. There's a lot of things you can do to fix that. And not everybody's arm mode looks perfectly, or leg mode works perfectly, but I don't think any of them honestly look bad. Just some of them don't look good together. Like I mentioned, Rook and Blades don't really look good together just because one's bulky, one's not. But overall, I think this is a really good set. If you like Protectobots, if you like Defensors, if you like Transformers, I would highly recommend getting this set. They are very fun, very interesting, and I really like the colors, I really like the figures, I really like how they all look together. I think it's just a really good figure set.